Hello, everybody. Nick Tiro here. A little casual here because this may be one of the quickest videos I ever created, and it's probably one of the most important videos I ever created. So you're going to see me make a lot of foibles. They're not intentional, but they happen, and because the topic we're going to cover in these videos is very important. Um, Many years ago, when I was working my PhD, I was stressing out. I was pulling clumps of hair. I was losing sleep. And I'm like, this is week one of the PhD program, and I wanted to bail. So I talked to one of the instructors, and I am stressed. You can ask friends who were with me at the time. I am stressed. And I'm like, I'm quitting. And my wife at the time said, no, you're not. You have to stick it. You have it. So I'm going to tell you, you may be under a lot of stress in certain classes. You all have the capability to do things. And when I talked to one of the instructors, let me put this in perspective. I stand about 6'3", 275 pounds. I'm a pretty big person. The instructor I was speaking to was Dr. G. Abramson. Uh, she ended up being my dissertation advisor. She stood about 4'11", 5 foot. But when she would enter a room, she was the biggest person in the room. She just had one of those personalities. And she was a fantastic educator. She told me something. She said, Nick, stop seeking immediate perfection. It doesn't happen. And I'm like, what? She goes, if I tell you to write a 3,000 word essay, right, a research project, do not attempt to write a 3,000 word perfect essay project in your first go around. You're going to have to take it in manageable chunks. You are not going to look at a blank sheet of paper and write 3,000 perfect words. Her words, not mine. Stop seeking immediate perfection. Perfection is going to come, right? The answer is going to come, but it's not going to come immediately. I love studying history and stuff like that. One of my favorite topics is the space race of the 1960s. When John F. Kennedy said, we're going to land a man on the moon by the end of the decade, they didn't go out and build the Saturn V rocket and launch the astronauts to the moon on day one. They had to take small increment steps, and they made a lot of mistakes. And every time they made a mistake, they worked on it. If you read anything about some of the great artists, Michelangelo painting the Sistine Chapel, he spent months designing the scaffolding that they would use in the Sistine Chapel, months designing the scaffolding. And that is even before he laid a brush to paint to the ceiling. You have to take things in small, manageable chunks. This video is for all my students, not just for my programming logic students, but it's for all my students. But I'm going to use one of the first labs that tends to cause students angst in the programming logic, because we don't cover in great detail the Python language in programming logic, but we use the Python language in programming logic. Step one, the book may not have the content you're looking for. Forget about programming logic for a second. Step one, the book may not have the content people are looking for. So guess what? You have to deviate out of the book and do your own independent research. If the instructor points you to those tutorials, do those tutorials. Just don't read the tutorials, participate in those tutorials. That is critical to this entire learning process. If you're writing a 3,000 word paper, you got to do research, right? You got to break out in your own. It may not be specifically in the textbook. So let me jump to my screen here and let me do one of the first labs that tends to cause students angst. Uh, and I will tell you, if you don't care about, I'm being a little mean here, I'm sorry. If you don't care about learning the process and the procedure, fast forward to the end of the video. If you don't care about the procedures, if you don't care about how to succeed, and you just want the immediate answer to this lab, fast forward, right? Just fast forward and skip it. I'm trying to teach in all of my courses, not just in this particular course, the methodology that we use, that we can use for success, the methodology to build the scaffolding, the methodology to take those incremental steps to land people on the moon. We started with Project Mercury, and then they went to Gemini. Gemini was 2 pilots, and then they went to Apollo that had 3 astronauts, and they were landing. So let's switch over to my screen and let me show you the step-by-step approach that you can use that you will tend to be very successful with programming. All right. Here I am on the screen. Not going to do this in an interpreter, not going to do this in a fancy IDE. I'm going to use the IDE from the textbook, the Zybook IDE. I could do it from anywhere, right? I choose to pick it here. Let's read this. Write a program that reads integer user underscore name and dev underscore num as input and output user num divided by div underscore num 3 times using the floor division. Oh my God, Nick, I've never did Python in my life, and you're jumping me. This is the deep end. They just told you what they wanted. Most coding, you got to figure that out, right? But they basically told you. So let's take the step-by-step approach. Real simple. The worst thing I can do is just start typing code here, right? I think I know what I'm doing. I watched Nick's videos, and I read the tutorial. And people just start typing stuff in there. Stop. Small, manageable chunks. We know what we're looking for. It says write a program that reads integer. They tell us the 2 integers as input. Okay, I'm only going to do 1 integer. Only going to do 1 and then see if I can perfect that, then go on. So I'm going to start with user underscore num. Okay, user underscore num equals input. Again, we're using Python here. Yeah, everything looks fine here. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put test code in there. Code that is not going to be in the final product. So I want to make sure that I'm getting what I want. Now, some of you are already saying, Nick, you're making a mistake. I don't know that yet. I'm pretending I don't know that. So I'm going to say print user num. All right, let me run the program. Oh, so it did input 2000. That's here. All right, so it's working. I'm going to do the exact same thing with div number. Now, this line of code may or may not end up in our final product, in our final thing. Right? We'll call it test code. And this is just going to be test code. We want to see the result. And everything I'm doing on the fly. I am not going to cut and paste or show you my, or not show you my imperfections. All right. So I'm expecting on the output to see 2002 now. Okay. Does it work with other numbers? All right. How about 3000? I can use any number. It doesn't really matter. Run it. Good. So now I know I can go on with my coding. Why do I know I can go on with my coding? Because I'm pretty confident I'm inputting these values. So you know what? I don't need this code anymore. And let me get rid of it. Boom. All right. And it outputs user num divided by div num 3 times. That's a lot of work using floor division. What is floor division? I may have to look that up, or they provide it for me here. They say Python floor division discards fractions. For example, 6 /4 is 1. Basically, 6 divided by 4 is 1. We trunk the remainder, and it discards everything else. All right, so let's do it. I'm going to say, okay, user num is now going to be equal to user num / div num. And I'm going to say print user num. two more. I got rid of some code. I got rid of my test code. This may be test code right here. All right. I got rid of the previous test code because I don't need it. Pretty confident about that. So I'm going to do the division. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the current user num with user num and the division. Okay, let's run this. And I'll go back to my input being 2002, all right? Two integers. Let's run this code. Oh, something strange happened here, all right? Some of you at home knew what this problem was going to be. Other people, it's like, oh my God, I don't understand Python. No, you do understand Python, all right? If you've gone through the tutorials, or if you, and not if, you've gone through the tutorials, you worked with the tutorials, and then you looked at the videos. Oh, wait a second. I remember somewhere Nick said the input, or maybe the tutorial said input strings. Huh. So I'm trying to divide a string. I need to fix this. So I go back up to here and I say, if I want to input an integer, I can do this. All right. And I'm going to test it again. And I know down here isn't working. I'll try it on this line too. If you're fairly confident with it, try it on another line. If you're not confident with it, remark the stuff out that you know is not working. And let's try it over here. All right. And we'll do the exact same thing. Okay. And let's run this. Okay, it's 2000. Let's see. That's interesting. 2000. Oh, I put a typo up here. Okay, let's get rid of this. That was not intended, right? I do those type of things thousands of times a day. And when I'm programming, I do it a lot. So guess what? I go back up here and fix it. Now let's run it. I should be getting output of 2000 and output of 2. Yep. Okay. Now let's try the division again. Because I know I'm getting an integer. I'm fairly confident I'm getting it. I'm not 100% sure, but I think I am. Let's run the code again. Oh, okay. So we got 2000. It is still printing out 2000. And I don't need these lines of code here anymore. Okay, and again, there are many times and you talk to other programmers, they'll put test code in there. They forget to take it out. So we go back and run it. Hey, that's pretty good. I like that. Let's press on. Okay. So right now the current value of user num is 1000. Now, okay. Let's finish this code because I got to get this code done. All right. No, don't do that. Let's user num is equal to user num / or forward slash dividing by that, and let's print it. Now, what should I see? Well, I have two print statements, so I should see 1000, and I should see 1000 divided by 2, or 500. Let's run this. Hey, that seems to work. Let's try it one more time because they asked for it 3 times, right? They asked for it 3 times. So again, I'll say user num is equal to user num / I've only written 2 lines of code. I'm up to 14 lines of code. Actually, I'm up to about 8 lines of code. I'm up to 14 lines of code. But how did I start? I started with one thing. I started with inputting a number, and then I input it again. Then I found out that I was wrong, and then I fixed it. And I kept on going back and forth, right? Did I start with 14 lines of code? No. So let's proceed. Now I should be seeing for output 1,500 and 250 because I keep dividing things by 2 using floor division, right? And they tell me what floor division is. All right, let's run this again. Good. Let's use a different number. Maybe 2000 works perfect all the time. Let's use a different number. Let's use I'm trying to think of, yeah, let's use 300 divided by 2 3 times. 150, 75, 37. Even though half of 75 is 37.5, we don't, floor gets rid of that 0.5. So we're in pretty good shape right now. But if I go back and I say 2000, my logic is working. Oh boy. And we are in really, really good shape with the logic. But if I submit this, I say, okay, I'm ready to submit. Let's do this. Submit it. Nope. It's looking for this output here. Everything's on one line with a space there. I'm giving it this, but my logic is flawless. Well, you're getting the results, but you're not getting the expected output. So guess what? How do we do this? Maybe instead of always dividing user num, that might be, okay, that's not a bad idea. And you're going to sit here and you're going to stare at these things, and that's normal. There's your brain trying to work out this problem, right? We're always using the same num. How about if why not take these temporary values? Because see, at one point, user num is 2000, then it's 1000 temporarily, then it's 500 temporarily, then it's 250 temporarily. Maybe instead of putting them into temporary situations, we permanently keep track of them. How can I do that? We use our friend variables. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, temp1 is equal to user num. Okay. And I'm going to down here. Well, let's do a print here. Let's see what temp1 is. Let's run this. Go back to development mode. Run the code. Okay, temp1 is here. All right, temp1. Okay, so that's good. I don't need to print temp1 anymore, and I don't need to print user num anymore, right? And how will I know if this stuff works? How about way down here? I print temp1. Why not? Okay, let's run this. All right, so it's not displaying that temp up here anymore. It's not displaying, but it's displaying, okay, I don't need these anymore, right? I'm gonna get rid of those. Those are just helping me program. And let's run it. Oh, I'm getting 1,000. Well, if temp1 works, how about if I do it again? I know some of you are looking at that and saying he's going to get, let's pretend, okay? And go down here and let's run it. I wanted 1,500. Oh, I'm using the same temporary variable again. How about if I just, let's run it. I'm still getting, Oh, I didn't change it down here. These things happen, right? I'm taking things in small, manageable chunks. I'm not seeking instant perfection, right? So let's run it again. Oh, I'm close. And here's where you start getting excited because you've learned the methodology, you've learned the process. Well, if temp one, because I know I can't use temp two or temp one, and I'm experienced with this now. Let's run it. I am close. Let's see what the auto grader tells me. You notice that I've been in development the whole time. Let's go to auto grader here for a second and let's submit it for grading. I can submit it to grading as many times as I want because sometimes, oh, wait, it worked. It worked. Hey, and trust me, sometimes you'll run a program and it works and you're shocked. Now, let's look at this code. If I tried to seek perfection, or sorry, if I tried to seek immediate perfection and I'm staring at a blank screen, there is no way I'm going to write these 15 lines of code. I'm going to get errors after errors after errors. Things aren't going to be floating. You address one small thing at a time. If we go rewatch this video, what did I do? I inputted user number, checked it, looked cool. I inputted div number, checked it, they look cool. I found out they weren't cool. Hi, because when I tried to use them in integer division, they didn't work. And then, oh yeah, I remember from the tutorial, or I remember from Nick's videos, or I remember that somebody told me that inputs that as a string. So I have to typecast it. So there I put those typecasting of int. Then I did one division. And when it worked and I was able to print it out, test it, I went to another division. It worked. I tested it, printed. And at every step along the way, I used temporary code that was just there just to verify what I was getting. This whole process took about 10, 15 minutes, right? But I guarantee you, if you try to jump into this program immediately and seek that instant perfection or immediate perfection, it's not going to work. You have to, as corny as this may sound, you have to build the scaffolding, and you may spend months building the scaffolding so you can climb up and paint the ceiling. Not that we're Michelangelo. You have to have the Mercury project in landing men on the moon. The Mercury project was basically named after getting astronauts up there as quickly as possible, one astronaut at a time. Then we had to have the Gemini project to see if multiple people can work together in Earth orbit. Then we got into Apollos, and there was Apollo 1. Sadly, that was they had their horrific fire, and 3 of our astronauts died. Then they had Apollo 8, and Apollo 8 just circled the moon. At the same time they're running Apollo 8, they're running Apollo 9 and 10 to see about Earth orbit rendezvous and some other things around the Earth. 8 went around the moon, and 9 and 10, 9 went around and all of a sudden Apollo 11. Every step of the way they did something. Sometimes they were successful, sometimes they were failures, but at no point in whatever it was, 1961 or 1962, when President John F. Kennedy said, "We seek to put a man on the moon within this decade," did they say, "Let's go build the Saturn 5 rocket. Let's put Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Mike Collins in this capsule. Let's shoot to the moon. Let's land them. We should be there in 6 months." No, didn't happen. Step by step. You already know a lot. You take those things that you know and you build upon them, right? Very quick video. What I mean by quick was I literally was driving my son and nephew to school. I came home. I said, you know what? This is too important of a subject not to put it out as quickly as possible. So a little casual here, but don't look at this final code, right? Don't look at that final code. You look at that final code and you copy and paste it, and it'll run. You'll get graded, right? I'll recognize that you're cheating, but watch this video again. Understand the methodology that I use to create that, because that exact same methodology you are going to use in all your other code. This exact same methodology is the methodology you are going to use in writing those 3,000 word papers. Nobody writes a perfect paper. Nobody writes a perfect code the first time they said it. It's testing, it's verifying, and it's editing. If I'm writing a paper, I write, I struggle with that first sentence in the paragraph, and then I try to perfection. Maybe I have somebody look at it. Then I write um, maybe a 3,000 word essay. I have to write 4,000 words, and then I sit back and then I edit it and move things around. We all have to do this. We have to stop seeking immediate perfection. I hope you learned something. Thank you. The answers you're seeking are at the end of the video. Hello? Yes, I am. Okay. Uh, okay, thank you. I'll talk to you when you get home. Love you. Bye.